Hey team, welcome back to the channel, man. I'm stoked to see you. So this is a question that one of y'all brought to the table, and it was, how could I talk to a service member about the options of staying in as opposed to getting out? So that's what we're going to kind of talk about here. And so I hope that if you have a specific question or comment as it relates maybe to this discussion or for another one that we need to have, make sure you drop some comments down below. That way we can continue to keep this conversation rolling. Now, I do have quite a few things I want to try to share, and of things that I have shared in the past to some folks. But I want to put the number one thing up front. Most people would put it on the back end. This one's going to be right up front, because I think if we don't get this one right, everything else is going to be wrong, if that makes sense. So, values, right? Value-based decisions. Are you happy with what you do, right? Does that make sense? Is what you are doing on a day-to-day basis, does it match up with who you believe you are and who you want to be as a person? If the answer is no, then you should get out. And look, man, there are a ton of reasons why somebody may choose to move on, right? Sometimes you'll hear it a lot where people want to get out because they want to go make more money, or they're tired of all the BS. And I'm gonna break that one down as far as the BS is concerned. But you know, the grass isn't always greener on the other side. And if you've ever spent any time as a civilian, you know this. I know you know this. But you know, when you are in the military, you are in a profession that is a values-based organization. And we kind of take a lot of things serious, and sometimes we take those serious things for granted, whether it's due to poor leadership or not having the right purpose, direction, motivation to be able to accomplish the mission and improve the organization, right? Which is leadership. But I think that is the number one thing that you have to get right. Be happy with what you're doing. Understand that you're in a profession, and understand where you fit in to something that is much larger than yourself, because you're not going to find that sense of community and that sense of value-based decisions that you can make on a day-to-day basis and that you're a part of in very many other occupations. And that's the thing, right? So the military, is it a job? Some people come into it as a job, but really, as far as I'm concerned, it is not a job. It is a profession. So let's go ahead and break down into the rest of these. And again, you let me know what your thoughts are down below, man. And again, if this is something that you're into, mastering your craft, developing your tactical virtue, military topics and related issues, make sure you subscribe to the channel, click the notification bell so that you can stay up to date on some future content. And so predictability, right? I know that a lot of times we don't think and feel like we have it, but when it comes to your pay, it's predictable. There's not many jobs out there where you can pinpoint a date in the future and understand what your pay is going to be at that particular time, right? We have our pay charts that you can look at, and not only that, but you can predict with some pretty good certainty what your advancement is going to be. Not a lot of other places can do that either. You could be stuck as a janitor for the rest of your life and making the same pay, doing the same things, and barely getting pay raises for inflation, which of course is an all-time high. But in the military, you have that sense of predictability, especially if you're a junior enlisted service member. You can say beyond the shadow of a doubt, if I do everything in my power, I can look at that trend report. I know what my trajectory path is. I know all the things that I need to do in order to advance to the rank of sergeant and staff sergeant. And by that point in time, I know what it's going to take to become a sergeant first class and beyond, if that's what you want to do. So I think having that sense of predictability is pretty dadgum huge and important. Of course, one of the very first things that everybody gets is 30 days paid vacation each and every single year. And this is something that rolls over from year to year. And right now, it's a little weird but you know, at some point in time, you may lose some leave if you don't take it. But most commands are not willing to assume the risk of you losing your leave. But there's not many jobs out there, let alone professions, where you start off with 30 days paid vacation each and every single stinking year. And that's huge, man, because that's out of 12 months. Now we're only talking about working 11. But wait, there's more. Because every single month you're getting a dadgum 4-day. So that's And then when you add on top of those 4 days, you take all those family times, all the organized grab ass days, all the other, readiness days, resilience days, people letting folks go off at 1200, maybe it's a payday activity or something like that. Now we're really only working 10 months out of the stinking year. That's pretty stinking huge because you're getting paid for 12, right? It's not quite as good as teacher, time off, but, it's pretty stinking good. Especially for those who are married, having that health benefit is huge. And even if you're single, because there are a lot of jobs out there, especially if they're entry level, and if they're smaller organizations where healthcare is not paid for and dental care is not paid for. And it's certainly very rare to find a job that's going to pay for healthcare for your family. So having that benefit is huge, man. If you've ever had to buy insurance, you know that you could spend $600-700 a month for just some mediocre and decent health care. So that's a pretty dadgum huge benefit. And so one of the other things that we all get coming in is some educational benefits. Of course, we have the GI Bill that we all sign up for. And anymore, I don't even think you all pay into it anymore with the post 9/11. And of course, that's going to offer some good educational benefits after you get out, right? While you're in, you don't need to use it because you have TA assistance that your commander can approve and pay off for. And so the government, aka our tax dollars, is going to pay for your education. On top of all that civilian education that you can get, you should be able to get into a school each and every single year. And that should be your personal goal. What kind of school can I get to each and every single year? On top of schools, you have certificates that the government is going to pay for, whether it's IT based or anything else. There are all kinds of certs that you can get after and get into in order to beef up your resume, whether you get out at 4 years or whether you get out at 20 or 30, right? That's huge, man. When it comes to our pay, I know it doesn't seem like it's always all that hot, but I do know a lot of single dudes who are living in the barracks who are paying out of their own pocket to go eat chow because they don't want to eat at the chow hall. And I get it, man. That's something that we often take for granted is the food that we have in our DFACs and chow halls. But, if you are married, that's money that you literally see coming into your bank account, and that's an allowance, right? That money for food is an allowance. The same with your housing allowance. And because it's an allowance, it's non-taxable. So you take all that and you add it in. And even if you're single, you may not see it coming in, but it's something that is being paid for you, a place to live and food to eat. So when you take all of that combined, what you need to do is realize what do you need to do to maintain your standard of living right now if you get out. And I think for most folks, especially like maybe you're on the cusp of getting out and you got 4 years in and you're single, you're probably looking at like, no shit, you need to probably make $50,000-$60,000 in order to maintain exactly your standard of living, right? With your disposable income and everything else that you're going out and buying. And that's not all that easy to find if you don't have some of those other things going for you, like your degree and your education benefits, having certificates, things of this nature. You need to make yourself as marketable as you can. And if you have people who you are caring for, right, aka your family, you have a spouse and kids, you need to make sure that you're doing the right thing for them as well. And again, that goes back to values-based decisions, right? And living with a sense of selflessness as opposed to selfishness. Sad but true, but the military is one of the only jobs where you don't have to be good at your actual job, right? Because most people throughout their career do their actual job very little, right? Most of the time, the only time that we actually do our job is when we are a junior enlisted soldier. And even then, we're going out and working on the gate. We have all these other red cycle taskings, and we're doing all kinds of other layouts and inventories and motor maintenance and whatever it is that we're doing. But actually doing our JOB doesn't come that often. And so if you just do those 4 basic things right time, right uniform, right frame of mind, right place, if we do those 4 things, we're set up for success, right? So if you get out, if you can't do your job, well, your employer is going to let you go because it's a cutthroat world as a civilian. You have no way around it, right? Being in a contract with the government, your supervisor cannot just can you and send you down the road and pay unemployment, where most states give more rights to employers than employees when it comes to how much work that we're doing. So that's something else to consider, right? If you just show up and do a mediocre job, you can dadgum retire. And speaking of retirement, this is one of the few places at all where you can start off at 18 years old and start drawing some pension in 20 years. Now, that's not going to totally offset. You're going to have to get another job, but how much more work that you need to do is going to be drastically reduced, and so that reduces a lot of the stress that you need by the time that you get out. I know we have a lot of BS in our lives and in our units, but if you think about it, every 18 months, who you're working with, for, and who your peers are is going to change, whether it's a change of command, a change of responsibility, a PCS, right? We're always constantly coming and going. And so if you're in a place now, and this happens a lot to junior soldiers who come to your unit and they serve a couple years and they judge the entire military based off of this unit right here, right now. They don't understand that the military is dadgum huge, man. And so it's not worth it to judge an entire organization based off of an experience of maybe 100 dudes or less. So know that people are going to constantly be coming and going, and the more senior you become, the more often, the more fluid those moves are going to be. So while you may have a bad boss now, if you just hold on and wait, odds are they're going to move or you're going to move. That, again, this is not something that happens in the civilian marketplace, right? Because you'd be out working for the same people for your entire life, and if you don't like them, you're going to quit, right? Or they're going to make you quit. One way or another, something's going to change. But in the military, you know that things are going to be constantly changing. That's one of the only constant things that we have in the military is things are constantly changing. Speaking of always constantly coming and going, man, in the military, you got that, man. If you may have grown up in small podunk town Indiana, and now all of a sudden you've been to South Carolina, you've been to North Carolina, you've been to Washington, you've been to Germany, you've been to Hawaii, you've been to Korea, and it's all been paid for by the stinking military. And then while you're there, you get out and you get to go travel and explore, you get to meet new people, you get to do new things. If you're lucky and you're fortunate, you get to throw some rounds down range, right? So it's one of the only jobs where you get to actually do that, if that's what you're into. But being able to travel, man, is huge because most people, most Americans do not travel that much at all. There are so many people, you probably know them even in your unit, in your organization, where somebody may have enlisted, and this is the first time that they've been out of their hometown. And so being able to do this and be able to do it not on your own dime, but on somebody else's dime is dadgum stinking huge, if you ask me. I've been really fortunate in my walk. I've been all over the globe, in northern hemisphere, in the summer, and then in the southern hemisphere, east to west, man. I've absolutely enjoyed it. And of course that comes at a cost when it comes to the family, and there's a lot of time spent away. And again, I get that there's a lot of good value reasons in order to think about considering transitioning. But if you do, you need to make sure that you're walking through the proper steps and that you're set up for success and that you always have a job before you lose a job. Something my dad taught me a long time ago. So there's just a few thoughts from Stoker about some good quality reasons as far as why somebody should think about staying in. Again, I think that very first and most important thing that we have to get right is that it needs to be a values-based decision. Because if you think out thinking that the grass is greener on the other side, you're wrong. Same thing in the military, right? Your last duty station was the best, right? That last unit was the best unit you've ever been in. Your current one sucks and you can't wait to get to the next one. And that cycle rinses and repeats. And it's the same thing if you happen to transition to the civilian marketplace, right? It's not always greener on the other side. And if you get out, man, you should not be afraid of getting out, but make sure you're set up for success and not just doing things because of, as it relates to money, or because you don't like your current first sergeant or commander or something like this, right? Your decision should be long-term based. Play that long game, not the short game. Does that make sense? And again, I get it, man. The military is not for everybody because, again, if you don't line up with those values and those virtues and those beliefs, then this may not be the job and the profession for you or for that individual. And so you do need to pick it up and move on, right? And I appreciate all you guys. Again, make sure you leave some comments down below. That way we can continue to keep this conversation rolling. I appreciate all you guys, man. Until then, you stay out there, you keep grinding, and you stay stoked.